Welcome to Preach 360. My name is McKay Caston, and I'm really glad you're here. Is your sermon vocabulary betraying the gospel? Now, I know you want to preach grace. If you're here, you want to preach grace, but you may be unintentionally preaching law more than you think. And yes, law precedes grace, but once the law has done its work, leading us to Jesus, everything changes. We don't live against the law, but instead of duty and obligation, grace becomes the motivation, and the Spirit becomes the enabling power source for our change. So do this, if you dare. Listen to a recent recording of one of your sermons and count how often you used words such as must, should, have to, need to. Yes, look, these words can be connected to grace, but if that connection isn't explicit, then our listeners are going to translate those words as words of obligation, duty, and responsibility. Words that imply, it's not what we're intending, but words that imply by how they are receiving them that God's acceptance is waiting for them on the other side of obedience. So learning the grammar of grace changes everything, especially when doing sermon application. For example, if the grammar of law application is we must or you should, the grammar of gospel application is now in view of the cross, now in union with Jesus, we get to. When you shift this language, you actually shift the motivational posture of the heart. And it seems like a small change, but it really is the difference between law and gospel, a wage and a gift, or obligation and opportunity. Here's how you could consider applying the grammar of grace to a topic like generosity. You ask 4 questions. Question 1, what is the truth? What is the biblical truth about generosity and how it connects to God? Second question, why do we struggle with generosity? Question 3, how does Jesus demonstrate generosity? And then question 4 is, what opportunity for generosity is now possible? You see, when you answer question 3 with the cross, question 4 changes entirely. It's no longer a law application. It is a responsive application. This means that we're not called to generosity to prove or secure our standing. We're called to generosity because as recipients of mercy, it reflects the greater generosity of Jesus. Now, there's some questions that people might be asking after this. Won't people think obedience is optional? Well, this is a fear that keeps a lot of us pastors locked into law language. If I don't say must, people might not take it seriously. If I don't say should, they'll think it doesn't matter, or maybe it's optional. The reality is that obligation language doesn't produce obedience. It produces either pride when people succeed in what we've told them to do, or despair when they fail. Grace language, the we get to, actually fuels stronger, deeper, more authentic obedience. Not fake fruit, but true fruit of the Spirit. Second question, doesn't this make sin less serious? And I want to say no, not at all. Grace does not minimize sin. The cross does the exact opposite. It shows how seriously God takes sin. But once sin is dealt with at the cross, the Christian life isn't about sin management now. It's about worship. It's about receiving the love of God and reflecting the image of the one who has saved us. And so when you preach get to, you're not saying sin doesn't matter. You're saying sin has already been conquered. And so now we get to live from victory, not for it. A third question, and the final one: what if my people are immature believers who still need the law? Immature believers, like mature believers, do not grow through guilt. We need the law to lead us to Jesus, but we grow by beholding Jesus, his cross, and abiding in him by faith, by turning with our sin to him, receiving his gift righteousness as our new identity. For example, Paul didn't tell the Corinthians to just try harder to pull themselves out of their sinful tendencies. He told them who they were in Christ and showed them how to live in view of that identity. The law shows us our need. The gospel meets the need, and the Spirit empowers the response. Hey, by the way, if this resonates with you, I have a community of pastors learning to preach grace as the fuel for new life rather than just fallback for failure. They're learning the grammar of grace. And so if this resonates, I would love for you to become part of the community. Membership is free. Get the link below. I'd love to see you there.